Hey guys, Professor Bruce from B1 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Today I'm joined here by my teammate and friend Jordan Shannon. He's also the head instructor and owner of Grassroots Jiu-Jitsu and Fitness, located in Beverly Mount Greenwood, right next to Oak Lawn, Illinois. So if you have any friends or family out that way, uh, drop him a ring. So Jordan is here today, guys. He's going to share a little his story about himself, how he's come up through the ranks. And this week we had been sharing some information on how to deal with hitting resistance in jiu-jitsu, right? What's another word for resistance? Plateaus, little lulls, little downturns, you know. And Jordan has been training jiu-jitsu for 14 years. So 14 years of experience, get a little bit different insight, a little bit different perspective on the growth of jiu-jitsu. So Jordan, how did you get started in jiu-jitsu?
So I got started in 2010 with the goal of fighting MMA. So I started with no gi. Put on the gi just to, help shore my jiu-jitsu game up. I have like a striking background and fell in love with it. And I've been, wearing it ever since and got my black belt in November of 2023. So after 12 years of training and don't regret a minute of it.
Excellent. What was your first competition?
First competition was actually Combat Do.
Okay.
I did their like winter tournament, and first I did the nogi. Did not do well at all. Like I think I lost every match. So I had gi afterwards, and actually won every gi match. So it was my first introduction of like, hey, you may fail at first, but to keep your mind in it, and you always got a chance to come back and do better.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And did you? I should know this, but you did some MMA fights after that, right?
No, after I got into all my MMA fights were prior to starting jiu-jitsu.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I fell in love with it that much where like that became my focus.
Ah, okay. Okay, because a lot of people, a lot of times it's the other way around, right?
Yeah, yep. I went
You know.
into it wanting to get better at jiu-jitsu, but the technical aspect of it, like once I really started digging in and like learning the aspects of like the gi and the grips and things like that, that became its own like puzzle to solve where I actually enjoyed that more than, getting in the cage,
Oh, okay,
getting
okay.
punched in the face.
Yeah, no, that can be it
Yeah,
could be a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit tough, a little bit nerve-wracking, I think, for many of us. But I mean, that was very brave of you to, do something as you know, complex as MMA. For sometimes, for a lot of people, it's hard to come in through the door, let alone, jump into an MMA fight. I mean, I know my personal experience, I was the opposite, right? I was trying to utilize my jujitsu to eventually get me into MMA, but the deeper that I got into, being more well-rounded, the deeper I got into boxing, the more
Right,
I realized, like, hey, man, like if I'm gonna do MMA, it's like there's not enough time in the day.
right.
I don't have the energy to be good at both. To be good as a jiu-jitsu practitioner and as a mixed martial artist, right?
Right.
So from there, kind of where'd you go next?
So I continued to do competitions. My very first blue belt competition was Naga, which I won and did a couple of IBJJFs with mixed results. A couple of bronze, silvers. And then in 2015 was where I would say I hit my first like kind of roadblock to jiu-jitsu. I actually ended up developing blood clots in my legs and lungs, which I didn't know at the time because I was training every day. I'm running, lifting weights, doing my rounds. Feeling good. But then actually on just a routine checkup, I found out that I had blood clots on my lungs and my legs. Had to take a year off. And yeah, that sucked.
Did they tell you why?
Never found out where it came from. Like I had a battery of tests, and yeah, they never found out where it came from. And like the doctors and nurses were shocked because they're like, you know what, all your tests are coming back great because I mean you're in shape, you're training all the time, right? So there was never like any indication of what caused it or where it came from. But outside of that, my main concern was getting back on the mats, getting back to jiu-jitsu.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, I
Yeah.
took a year off from 2015 to 2016.
Uh-huh.
But when I came back, it was like foot on the gas, and I've been consistent with it ever since.
So when you had those when you had that when you got those medical results back on the blood clots, did it ever cross your mind to quit altogether, pursue a different hobby?
That never crossed my mind. I took a year off because I was on blood thinners for a year. But my main goal was to get back on the mat. So once I got off the blood thinners and was cleared to go, I knew that this was what I wanted to get back to. Like that was
Okay.
my goal was always to train to get to black belt. That was always my goal to continue to pursue this till I reach my goal.
Yeah, so we see that often. I feel like when you go through a major episode in your life, right, where it's like it forces you to stay off the mat. Myself, like once I had an injury where I broke in a car accident, I broke a couple ribs,
Yeah.
and it's like a minimum I had to be off the mat for 30 days, I think.
Yeah.
And it's like those were the most excruciating 30 days because you really wanted to get back out there. And it's like, one, I felt like my body had let me down. Not my body's fault, obviously, but,
Right.
two, I'm just like, it kind of put things into perspective. So I'm like, now, like when it comes to, somebody tells me, oh, I can't train because of this reason. I'm like, oh man, like how can you let that slip through your fingers when
Right.
it's like it's so, it's something that's so enticing to us. But outside of that big episode, has there been any other times in your jiu-jitsu career where it's just like, man, you just felt like you hit, you can't, your technique's not getting better, you're not getting the results that you wanted, the glitz and the glam didn't come to you fast enough.
Yeah.
Like, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. And this is one thing I also try to put into like my students now is I'm a smaller guy, right? What most I've ever weighed is like 165 pounds. So starting, I'm white belt, don't know a lot of technique, and I'm going against guys that are 200 and up. All these years later, I still have that same problem, right? So there were a lot of days where like, hey, I'm doing the best I can, but I'm getting outweighed, out muscled. But I looked at it as a chance for me to learn, right? If I can't match these guys for size and strength and things like that, that's where I really have to shore up my technique. It didn't come easy. I mean, of course, there are a lot of days where I'm like, man, you go home, you're sore, your body's hurting. And, sometimes, yeah, you do have that conversation with yourself, like, hey, do I want to, keep going with this? But it only lasts for, a minute and you're right back on the mat the next day. So, I mean, and even, now, haven't gotten any bigger, it's just your resolve gets better,
Yeah.
right? So you learn to stick in it.
So what do you tell yourself those days that you wake up in the morning, your training, your no-gi uniform, your gi are sitting there. It's time to pick them up to go to class. But, we'll get into this in a little bit, but you just got off a long night shift. Maybe, you had a rough weekend, family, you name it, right? Anything can happen. Like, what do you tell yourself to get out the door?
Well, the goal is to always get better and improve. I'm not going to improve from my house. You know what I mean? I got to get out there on the mats, get out there with my teammates, see what they're learning, and, exchange the information with them, get my rounds in, get my rolls in.
Even on the days that you don't feel motivated,
Yeah,
right? That's what you tell yourself.
100%. I want to get better at this. I can only
Yeah.
get better at this by putting in the effort.
So exactly. So that makes it easier for you to get into your car. And even on the days that you don't feel like training, because we're human, it's gonna happen,
Right.
right? Do you ever leave the academy saying to yourself, "Dang, I should have just stayed in bed this morning"?
Absolutely not. I don't think I've ever said that. And again, the reason being going back to when I had to take time off, when I was forced to take time off for medical issues, it gave me an appreciation. It gave me an appreciation for the fact that I can get up and get out and train. Whether I have a good day or a bad day, I don't care. I just like to be on the mats.
Exactly. And I think that's something that does take, some time to create that habit, right? I often talk to students who they're like, "Oh man, like, some people feel comfortable here with me, so they'll be honest. They'll be like, man, I just wasn't feeling it that day," and I'm like, man, that sounds cliche, but on the days where you feel it the least amount is gonna be the day that you're gonna make the most improvement.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by it? Well, that the days that it's hard to get off of that comfortable spot, or you had a rough day at work, your boss yelled at you, your
Yep.
wife, your girlfriend's mad at you, your kids, are running a storm through the house. Like those are the days that you are gonna improve the most in jiu-jitsu. And I think that's the message that Professor Jordan here is trying to relay to everybody out there. Especially, my audience out here is mostly white belts, right? So, this is something that's gonna save you a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and a lot of membership tuition. On the days that are the toughest, get excited because those are the days that you're going to progress the most on the mat. I can't say it enough. That was some good insight, Professor Jordan. So you started jiu-jitsu. You got back after your medical situation. You're back on the mat. Where does Professor Jordan's jiu-jitsu career go from here?
So after that, and what's funny is I just remembered the day that I got cleared to come back to jiu-jitsu. It was actually the same day as the Chicago Open of 2016. So I literally left the doctor and went to Chicago State. And I think you were competing that day too. So like the whole year I just wanted to get back to jiu-jitsu. So that was to me that was kind of like a sign. Like, all right, Chicago Open's going on. Drove to Chicago State, watched some good matches, and I think I was back on the mat that Monday. So from there, it was really just training. Like, I didn't really have the, itch to compete at that point. Just really wanted to get back on the mats. So, from there, it was training 5 to 6 days a week. Normally Sundays would be my days off. In between work and, girlfriend life, things like that. I was always just finding time to just stay on the mats.
And I know after that, shortly after that, I think you became a police officer. Am I correct?
Yes. So I actually became a police officer in 2020 during the pandemic. And it was just something that everybody had always recommended for me. Like, hey, we think this would be a good career path for you. So I said, hey, why not? I went and tested for a department, became, really one of their top candidates on the list, and, things just really, progressed from there. Ended up becoming one of their defensive tactics instructors through my, knowledge of jiu-jitsu. But it definitely gave me an opportunity to kind of see, the other side of things of how you can actually use jiu-jitsu in a career instead of just, training and being on the mats and competing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something that I picked up too once I started teaching jiu-jitsu. Because to me, even when I first showed up at Professor Christian's Academy, I was like, I saw jiu-jitsu as a way to compete, to stay in shape, but I also, once I started really dabbling into, being more focused on teaching, I saw how much growth I had for people, right?
Yes.
Giving people, job opportunities, right? I mean, a police officer, would you feel comfortable with your partner not knowing jiu-jitsu?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I feel like everybody at least needs to know some form of self-defense. Of course, I'm biased towards jiu-jitsu, but everybody that's, riding in that squad car needs to know something to protect not only themselves, but the public and their partners.
But as an experienced police officer, would you say out of all the forms of self-defense out there, would you say jiu-jitsu has the best well-rounded techniques where you can utilize it without injuring the offender?
100%. We're going hands-on with people every single day. So whether it's, getting somebody out of a car or, having to handcuff them, whatever the case may be, you're literally going hands-on. Being in a jiu-jitsu academy, you're hands-on every session.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, you get used to it.
Yeah, think about if as a let's say an experienced boxer, a kickboxer, you know, you don't know how to grapple, but you know how to throw kicks and punches. How would the public perceive that if you're in a situation where you know, you're at risk, you don't know grappling, so you're going to resort to your boxing, your kickboxing.
Yeah, that looks terrible on camera.
That's gonna
It looks terrible on camera. Yes.
yeah. So, and that's the story I get. I mean, what would you say to the police officers that are like, well, you know, jujitsu's great and all. Maybe I just don't like what it looks like visually. You know, so I do CrossFit. I lift weights. What would you say? What would you say to those people?
And I mean, yeah, that's true. I've heard everything, you know, as far as like why you don't train. What I say to those people, just come in, you know, try it out, because literally it can save your life, right? And yeah, lifting weights is good. It's great to be in shape, but what happens when you come up against a person that's in better shape, that can run faster, that can put up more weight on the bench press than you?
Yeah,
You
and
know?
I mean, so it kind of leads me to my next question. You have experience as a personal trainer. Do big muscles equate to better handling of a self-defense situation?
Absolutely not. Actually, it can be a hindrance. You know, big muscles, you can fatigue more, you know, because you got to carry around that weight, carry around that muscle tissue. So
Yeah.
it actually could be a hindrance if you don't know how to efficiently, you know, defend yourself and use it.
Yes, because you can have big muscles, but if you can have big muscles and stay relaxed,
Yeah.
I think will, you know, kind of put things on your
Yes,
side a little
absolutely.
bit. So
Absolutely.
it's okay to have big muscles, but definitely know how to back those muscles
Yeah,
up,
you
right?
got to know how to operate them.
Yeah, so it's just, you know, that's just off the top of my head. It's something that I hear often,
Right.
you know, and any other setting than this, it's just not in my head. But here, I mean, you know, you hear for somebody who's not only a police officer, he's former personal trainer, uh, now dedicates himself to, you know, teaching the art of jiu-jitsu. So
Yeah.
uh, I think he's very, you know, Professor Jordan's very credible in his in as a resource to get this information out, you know, to people, uh, you know, even if you're a police officer or not, you know, I think I think you'd be doing a great help to the community. So Professor Jordan, so past what we've shared about so far, what are some experiences? What are some, you know, what's on the horizon for you? Tell us a little bit about your academy. You know, how did you put the academy together? You know,
So when I started jiu-jitsu, I'd always had it kind of in the back of my mind that one day I would want to open an academy. But from my experience as a police officer, I kind of saw like the immediacy of it, that it's needed. And I guess the way things work in the area that I'm in, I'm lucky that I'm in a very like law enforcement friendly community. The majority of my students are law enforcement, so I'm getting a chance to actually, you know, give them safety measures for their job. You know, as I'm showing a technique, I always try to add the reality aspect to it, whether it's like a cupping position or you know, something like that. It's just the way it worked out, and I'm blessed to continue to see it, you know, grow month after month. And yeah, we've been rocking and rolling.
nice. Oh, I'm excited to see it. I do see every week, you know, the new students on Professor Jordan's Maths Grow. I just yesterday shared a picture of our academy in 2015.
Yeah.
And at that point, I only had there was I think it might have been like an open mat. Had 6 people, right? Had 6 people, including one of our former teammates on there. So he wasn't even a student; he was just in there, you know, dropping in, supporting the academy. So it just kind of it goes to show. I mean, I look at Professor Jordan. I'm like, man, Professor Jordan's a way ahead of us with the time frame that he's been around. Um, you know, his academy is really picking up steam. So that just you know goes to show, you know, the skill set, the unique skill set that he brings to the table, and how people in his community are starting to notice it, right? And you know, Professor Jordan says a lot of his students are police officers. And oddly enough, our guest from last week was a referral from Professor Jordan. So, you know, I can't say enough good things. You know, again, if you're near Oak Lawn, stop on by, visit Professor Jordan. you know. And if you guys have any questions or you'd like information on how to reach out to him, we'll post his academy's name down below and his link to his website, so you can go ahead and check out some of the classes and services that Professor Jordan has. But Professor Jordan, any final words that you'd like to tell our community out there?
Well, yeah, for one, thank you for having me on the platform. And also, I want to give a big thanks to my students. Again, we're growing so much, and I couldn't have done it without, the help of all you guys. So I definitely appreciate all of you. And again, we're going to continue to grow, and we're going to keep rocking.
All right, guys. Again, this is Professor Bruce from B1 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu here with Professor Jordan. Until next time.